Now here's a huge Aleppo pine that I grew from a forestry seedling. It's quite huge now, and at this time of year in spring it gives off its pollen. It's Pinus or Pinus canaria, Pinus halepensis, also called an Aleppo pine, that's right. It's from Syria. And we also have Pinus canariensis from the Canary Islands, but it gives its pollen a few weeks later than this one, the Aleppo pine. So if you've got Aleppo pines like this one and Pinus canariensis, you can have 2 harvests of pollen if you want a harvest of pollen, and that's handy to know. Let's have a closer look at this Aleppo pine and its pollen. These are the male pollen, whatever they're called, I'm not sure what they're called, but it's the part from which the pollen comes, the male part. And this is Pinus halepensis, Aleppo pine from Syria. This tree gives off a beautiful perfume in summertime too. Wonderful to have a picnic under, the Aleppo pine. But let's just tap out a little bit without ruining the camera. Let's tap out a bit of pollen. I'm doing all this one-handedly, but you can tap out quite a lot of pollen. Here comes a nuisance. Look at that. Look. There's quite a lot of pollen here. Quite a lot of pollen here. If you used bags, or I've never tried to harvest it because I get hay fever, but if you used bags you could collect it somehow. I think the American Indians used pollen to for their yes, they did, didn't they? They did, yes. The American Indians used pollen for their cooking and things, and they collected it somehow. I'm not sure how, but I'm nervous about eating any. Yes, I'm nervous about eating any in case it brings on a dreadful hay fever attack. But it's supposed to be beneficial. And, well, you can read all about the benefits of eating pine tree pollen. But I don't want to have a dreadful hay fever attack. I'm already on hay fever pills and all. That's it anyway. If you know, read all about it on Wiki and elsewhere, and you can read about the benefits of Pinus halepensis and its pollen. Here goes. Lovely tree anyway. To think I grew it from a little seedling. There's the big Aleppo pine, and right beside it here there's a wee little Aleppo pine that came up from a seed. There's its cone. If you celebrated Christmas, I suppose this could be a Christmas tree, couldn't it? There's the young Aleppo pine cone. And here's the male flower things. I think there might be a little female thing on the end of the male thing, I'm not sure. I'm not a botanist. And remember, always seek botanical advice and the advice of wild food experts before you ever ingest any wild food. That includes wild pollens. And this is a little Pinus halepensis, Aleppo pine from Syria. This is a little Pinus pinea, the Italian stone pine. I think that grows in Greece too. It's a Pinus pinea, but as you can see, its little catkins, or whatever they're called, aren't ripe yet. They won't be giving off pollen for some weeks to come yet. This is Pinus canariensis from the Canary Islands, and its pollen won't be ready for a couple of weeks. Look, there's the male thing, but if you tap them, there's no pollen coming out. It's not ready yet. It's going to be a couple of weeks. So if you're really interested in eating pollen, you could grow different sorts of pine trees, and you'd have harvests at different times of year, which would be a good idea. It would, wouldn't it? Beautiful Pinus canariensis.